Silent Hill 2 is considered to be the best horror game of all time, and for me, I can definitely say that's true. But the series as a whole deserves to be recognized for the way that it can put you on edge within seconds. These games are old and clunky, but their age is what contributes to its horror. I mean, just look at this fucking mess. What is that? Now accompany that with a masterful soundtrack and sound design that plays tricks on you, disorients you, and fucks with your mental state. What the fuck? What is that music? For a lot of people, they'll probably just shelf the game out of fear, but if you finish it, it will have a long-lasting impact on you and leave you with an unforgettable experience, and I wish I could experience a Silent Hill game for the first time again. So when dealing with the beloved series, more specifically a beloved game that has been lazily remastered in the past, it's easy to see why people were skeptical with Bloober's Silent Hill 2 remake. On top of that, Bloober Studio didn't have a good reputation in the first place. I think I'm gonna die again. So when they released the first gameplay trailer, I feel like everyone released a long collective sigh along with a, oh god. I was the same, as I've said in my E3 video, but I also said, I'll wait until it comes out, and they proved us all wrong. It's very hard to recreate the feeling you get when you first play Silent Hill 2, but they have come really, really close to doing so. The story still follows the same premise of James Sunderland journeying through Silent Hill to find his wife who's been dead for 3 years. Throughout his journey, he encounters other strange characters in Silent Hill, and as the game progresses, you find out why they've all been drawn to this town. I'm not going to explain the lore any further, but by the end of the game, you find out that the common thread is guilt. These are all quite simple characters with a really fucked up history, I guess, except for Laura. But if you've played the original game, you know that one of the most memorable flaws of Silent Hill 2 is its voice acting.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
Yeah, it's funny, but the meaning of the scene tends to slide off you when they break your immersion with whatever this is. It wasn't all bad, but it was definitely lacking. The performances in the remake are a big contrast from the original because they're good, really fucking good. It still manages to capture the dreamlike tone of the original, with mostly the same lines, but with way better delivery. Paired with their lifelike expressions, you really feel connected to the characters. Elements that were hard to express in 2001 can now be fully realized. As for the gameplay, I'm slightly iffy on it. As opposed to just standing in a hallway and holding the right trigger while spamming X, you now have to actually aim your gun and dodge. It's still really simple in one-on-one encounters, but it works well. Enemies are a lot smarter now too, and they can actually grab you and dodge. I was really impressed with the mannequin enemies because they would hide from you, dodge your attacks, do flips, sneak up on you. God, the nurses were out here doing 3-hit combos. But whenever there were several enemies in one space, it felt less like a horror game and more like Resident Evil 4. Going between both the original and the remake made me miss things about either game. In the original, I missed the challenge of the mannequins in the remake, and in the remake, I missed the sounds that enemies would make even after finishing them off. The original Silent Hill 2 was never really about fighting. The combat just felt like it was there to fuck with you and make you uncomfortable. I think the combat in the remake works though. I genuinely don't know why, but it just works. I think it's because every other element of this game was really strong. Even though the combat felt repetitive at times, it felt like the more you progressed, the more intense things would get. And I really liked that, even if the combat roughly stayed the same. I'm not saying that the combat was perfect, but the combat in the original was kinda ass, and I really like the remake style. As crazy as it sounds, the prison area was probably my favorite area because of how overwhelming it was. I can't do this. As if the mannequins weren't bad enough, they had to make them crawl on the walls. Oh my goodness, what the fuck? I feel like they can't do this and expect me to remain sane and intelligent because there is not a single rational thought going through my head right now. I don't... Oh, fuck off, man. I don't have time for this! I really enjoyed all of the boss fights too, but I have to give them the highest amount of praise that I can for Angela's story. Gianna Keel's performance as Angela was amazing throughout, but the entire sequence with Angela and her father blew me away. The build up to it was great, with the building falling apart and revealing these rusted metal fans and machinery underneath. while static TVs play memories from Angela's childhood. It was really depressing, and because I knew what was coming, I was already sad. And then when that cutscene happened...
You don't have to lie. Go ahead. Say it. Or you could just force me.
Oh my god.
Like he always did.
I fell apart, like really fell apart. The biggest compliment that I can give then is that despite knowing what was coming, they made all of the important moments hit hard. And the original game definitely needed performances like this. I have some criticisms though, but looking back at it, they come across as just nitpicks. The puzzles. In the remake, the puzzles are similar to the original, and you can actually find the original puzzles in these little flashback screens, but the puzzles are long. The reason this game is over double the length of the original is because they've stretched out the puzzles and made the areas a lot bigger. Sometimes they would be fun to solve, but other times I'd just be getting frustrated, and then I played the original and I had the same feeling. Remember this fucking garbage coin puzzle where you had to keep going in and out of the menus to place coins down and pick them back up? Oh, you got it wrong? Now go back into the menu and pick all of them up and do it again, and don't even get me started on Silent Hill 1. If it lets you play the sharps and flats, I'm gonna Anyway, my point is that I would get frustrated with puzzles a lot in the remake because I knew I'd have to backtrack and explore a whole new area to find the solution. But I remember this feeling when I was playing the original. Like, come on, hair attached to a hook to get a key? What? The problem is that this frustration lasts twice as long in the remake, but at least the journey to solve these puzzles is a lot more engaging because of the combat. There are other small things that I have problems with too. Pyramid Head. My first encounter with him in the original is something that I'll never forget, because there's this feeling of confusion because the radio is going off but nothing sounds like it's moving, and then this tight corridor leads to him and he's just staring at you. And then you come back out and he's gone. In the remake, I was still terrified, but they gave you the option to go into the other doors as you approach him, even after you've seen him, which made his appearance a lot less scary, and he would just stay there, even after coming out of those doors. Another nitpick. In the final cutscene with Angela, I feel like it would have been more impactful for them to have kept James looking down as opposed to him still looking at Angela. With the main theme of the game being guilt, I feel like it worked really well in the original. Back to Pyramid Head. The cutscene with the two pyramid heads was really good, but I preferred how they would appear next to James in the original instead of walking towards him. The symbolism there is way better. The fact that they appear behind him and that he turns around to face them to properly face his guilt feels more impactful, as opposed to the remake where they approach him like he's on trial or something. But I liked that the main part of the song didn't start until the fight properly started, because it gave James more room to talk, and the fight itself is really good. There were other things that I was going to talk about, like the videotape scene. I feel like they should have given more time for this moment to sit, but just look at that dolly zoom. Look at his face. Look at how lifeless he is. Whenever I look at these scenes in the remake, I remember my experience with it all, and none of those little things really brought the experience down that much. I've said this before, but the important thing to remember is that this is not a replacement for the original, and it really doesn't have to be. You can appreciate them both on their own. And there is so much to appreciate here. Details that will probably be covered in a 2-hour-long video essay explaining the lore of Silent Hill. Despite all of the tiny flaws, I enjoyed my experience so much, and it's clear that they really cared. This game looks stunning and is stunning. It's a game that both newcomers and fans of the original can appreciate, and I really enjoyed my time with it. There is no such thing as a perfect game, but there are some games that are so incredibly close to grasping perfection that I can look past all of their flaws. This game is one of them. 5 out of 5. Subscribe and support me in the description. I'll see you next time.